Welcome to Tramlines, a podcast from Agrii. I'm your host, Tony Smith, putting your questions to the experts. In this episode, I'm talking to Agrii's Chris Glover, who is Head of Crop Protection, and Jessica Farrant, who is Commercial Accounts Manager. Today, we're going to look closely at crop protection products, how the products are carefully scrutinised and reviewed before they reach the farmer, and how a constant ongoing assessment of their performance helps agronomists work with growers to deliver sustainable crop production, now and in the future. So, good morning to you both, and how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Excellent. So look, I'm going to start with you, Jess. We've had a chat about the role of crop protection products, but so how do you approach selecting crop protection products for your agronomists and, of course, growers?
Ultimately, it starts with the need of the grower. So we look at the grower's armoury, what they might need, where there might be gaps. And then there's an element of thinking to the future. So what crop protection active ingredients could be at risk, what the grower's armoury might look like in, up to 5 or 10 years' time. And we almost work backwards. There might be changes in the industry. So we've got things like biologicals becoming more important and less traditional chemistry, which means we have to take a different approach.
Right. And Chris, when Jess says 5 to 10 years ahead, that sounds like quite a challenge to me. How do you do that?
That's a really good question. I think crop protection businesses such as ours are quite used to taking products, 2 to 3 years in advance in terms of synthetic chemistry. And certainly in Agrii, trialling those and generating the data, in which case the registration arrives and we have all that data there ready to go to our growers and show them how to use those products and in which combinations. I think the additional challenge presented now is just interpreting which of those active ingredients are going to disappear in the future and when that might happen, but also taking newer offers, some of which are in inverted commas green offers, and generating that data in the same sort of way and looking at how they can be used alongside synthetic chemistry to good effect. The issue with it is, I think, in a lot of cases, the manufacturers themselves haven't developed some of those offers fully. So accessing them in the first place is the key thing. And then working with the manufacturer to produce the trials information to check on things like dose rates, compatibility, and so on and so forth, and actually which crops those products are going to perform in, or in a lot of cases, which ones don't perform. I think that's equally important to recognise, which products are the key ones and which ones are not generating value for the grower in the future.
Yeah, sure. So there's quite a few things there. Just in your response, I've picked out 3 or 4 areas which are really, really important. So Jess, if you're talking about AIs potentially disappearing, how much notice? What's the time frame for getting some sight on something disappearing out of that portfolio for a grower?
It really depends on why it's been removed, because we've seen it with certain active ingredients where we get very little notice and there's very short use up periods and things like that. And some are more predictable. So what we've done as a commercial and technical team is go through what we think could be worst case scenario almost and rank the actives that are potentially at risk or we think will be fine, just as a bit of an exercise to pinpoint where the future might go. We might be proven wrong, but we've got to start somewhere and forward plan for the growers.
And then in terms of getting your hands on products prior to a manufacturer getting registration, Chris, how much time do you have to work with these products and see how they, as you said, either perform or maybe don't perform?
Well, I think the key thing is by doing the sort of risk assessment of where things are, dropping off the edge, as it were, having the early conversations with manufacturers and the fact manufacturers trust Agrii's trials program and are fully in tune with that gives us that early access to those products. There are a number of smaller manufacturers as well that are out there that have these potential offers, and although we're not a screening business, we don't just take anything and look at it. We've got to sort of research them from a sustainability point of view and from a due diligence point of view with that supplier as well. Once we get some of those offers on the table, we can funnel that down relatively quickly. And I think the other point is not just in traditional statistically analysed trials, but also demo plots to give farmers and growers an early visibility of what's coming in the programme. So we can start sort of gearing up to the launch of some of these products alongside those suppliers.
Yeah, and I guess that's a pretty big task when you think about the acreage that Agrii is looking after, with all of your agronomists, and also the breadth of the country as well, and also the range of crops from fruits and hops all the way across to potatoes and cereals. Wow, it's a big job in terms of finding these crop protection products, isn't it? So to help you do that within Agrii, who are the different people that you work with, the different departments to help scrutinise these products and help to sort of develop them also with the manufacturer?
Well, I mean, the main department that we would talk to in terms of CP is the technical team, and working very closely with them. We're almost sort of, I wouldn't say beholden to that, but we certainly listen to what the technical guys have to say, which products they are selecting technically as providing the right solutions. And then out of that range, we can obviously look at what the value is to the grower and negotiate with the manufacturer to get those products at a price point in the market that represents good value. And obviously there's history to what growers are using. And I think the key bit with the technical work is not just about what the technical performance of that particular product is, but we also have to compare that with the existing standards, and actually say to for example, the supplier, yes, you've got this product that works, but at the rate that you're using it at, or in the combination it's got to be used with say another synthetic product, the value proposition isn't right for the grower. We've actually got to get that aligned before we go any further. So there's a technical aspect to it, but also ensuring from the grower's perspective or the farmer's perspective that it is a sustainable spend effectively for his or her crop.
Yeah, Jess, and I can see you nodding in agreement there.
Yeah, another thing that's really key when we work with the technical team is we do trials over a number of years in varying conditions from north to south. We've got different climatic conditions. The weather, as we know, plays a massive part. So we gain data on not only does it work in an ideal scenario, but real life practical data, so that we can understand how a product's used by the time we bring it into the portfolio. Essentially, we want to kind of know it inside out before we put it on any of our farms.
Yes, and of course we can't look at crop protection products in isolation, can we? And if we think about what has been talked about a lot at the moment, such as Regen Agriculture, Agrii's Green Horizons initiative, and within that we have Biosolutions. How do you look at products such as those that fit within that Biosolutions grouping?
Yeah, obviously the approach to biosolutions in some crops such as fruit and veg, and the amount of trials we've done over the years lends itself to getting those messages across. I think the challenge is going into the broad acre crops, the combinables, obviously rape, for example. Within Green Horizons, one of the challenges we laid down for ourselves and our suppliers is to say, we buy X number of products from you as a supplier. What do you have in the pipeline that we could take from you, even if it's sort of a distant sort of Petri dish stage development or a lab development, but over that 5 or 10 year period, to try and understand what's coming and actually say, right, in the case of particular CP product, that's likely to be revoked in the next 3 to 4 years, for example. Let's take some of those products, put them into a program, and be able to generate the data to actually support those ahead of time, but also use that as a vehicle to demonstrate you can grow crops either with a mix of the green products or the biosolutions with synthetic chemistry, or indeed we are looking at some of the biosolutions programs on their own without any synthetic chemistry within there. And I think the point of doing that is it gives us the confidence, and it gives growers and farmers the confidence to use those products when they arrive. And there are some examples of that. I mean, we're looking at a product called Iodus this year, which has been used in winter wheat. We've had that product for quite some time now in its development stages. We generated lots of data, and actually that product now also has a pesticide recommendation and certification for the OF&G from the organic side of things. So that's a sign of things to come. There are very credible products which can be tested and proven to work, and are actually showing that in the field. People are going around trials right now, looking at the results of that in terms of disease control, etc. And obviously, once those are yielded, we'll have another year's worth of data to substantiate that particular product.
Okay, so that's Biosolutions. If we just think and pick on Regen for a moment, because it is so incredibly topical. Chris, how does crop protection fit within this world of talking about Regen Agriculture?
I think there's sort of various interpretations of what Regen Agriculture is, and in some ways it's a sort of, some people view it as a way of going back to older methods and reducing the impact on the environment and looking at healthy soil, flora and fauna, and reducing pesticide use. Lots of different sort of interpretations of Regen. I suppose the key point is we recognise that part of the market, and maybe the whole market is shifting in that sort of direction anyway. We have formed a group within Agrii to look at this specific area, and that includes some of our agronomists. And although that sort of Regen badge is in some ways in its infancy, I think it's a recognition of this need to reduce the reliance on pesticides and crop protection products. And I think, what the work we're doing within Green Horizons and looking at some of those new solutions very much plays into the changes there and the interest in Regen Agriculture. So we will have, things that we can talk to growers about and help them continue, growing their crops with some of those reduced inputs.
Jess, in terms of your roles here in crop protection and finding these products, do you think that Agrii's reach in terms of acreage and breadth of crops, not just the broad acre crops, as you mentioned, Chris, but those speciality crops, do you think that helps you have conversations with manufacturers to access some of these products?
Well, without a doubt, as Chris said, we almost, I don't know whether hold them accountable is the right term, but when we are buying such a range from them, and we've got so many products within our portfolio to support growers, it gives us the opportunity to go to manufacturers and say, what have you got in your pipelines that fits the brief for the future? So I would say certainly yes, and we're also involved in so many different crops, and we're thinking about how cropping will change in the future. We've got more novel crops. As Chris says, we've got fruit and veg, and we can take learnings from those because, biologicals and biosolutions aren't a new thing. So yeah, we can certainly look at what we've been doing in the past and help create sort of the messages for the future, definitely.
Yeah, and interesting you mentioned that, actually, because one of our first podcasts was with agronomists who specialise in fruit and veg. And, some of their approaches are, well, really, really innovative and have been for a long time, haven't they? They've got a lot of top tips, I'm sure, that we can benefit from when we look at some of the broadacre and arable crops in general. We do need to talk about how farmers and growers can get products quickly and efficiently. And I know that you guys are deeply proud of your delivery service and the logistics. But why actually is that so important to both the agronomists and growers? Chris, why is it so critical?
I think the first thing to say is when we do surveys of growers and farmer customers, that they always recognise that Agrii's service level of delivery is the highest in the industry. And why is that important to them? I think that gives them confidence that the product that they need is going to be there in time for when they've got to go and do whatever job it is they have that day. So we have a wide range of products, and we store those mainly in Alconbury, but we distribute out to the other depots. I think the statistic is something like 98% of those deliveries are on time in full. The majority of them are next day by a long way. And I think growers really appreciate that when they've got a weather window and they need to be filling the sprayer. The fact that the products arrive on time and they're not waiting for other things to arrive, they can do the job and almost, well, not quite forget about the delivery side of it and take it for granted. And obviously they don't do that, but it gives them the ability to run their business and get the spraying done at the end of the day. And the same sort of thing applies to other areas of our business, not just CP. Course.
And those spray days are absolutely critical, aren't they? Jess, can we put a value on that speed of delivery?
With one of the projects that I've been working on this spring, actually, speaking to a grower, our delivery service meant that he saved, as it were, 6 spray days that he would have otherwise missed, had we not been so efficient.
But how do you cope with sudden changes maybe in products that are required on a crop, or where, for example, suddenly some micronutrients are required to go into that tank as well? How do you cope with those quick turnarounds?
I think we spend a lot of time looking at risk, I think, on behalf of our customers. So we spend huge amounts of time planning ahead of the season and modelling different sort of cropping scenarios and actually what would happen in different weather conditions. And obviously the weather is a very unpredictable beast. But by maintaining a level of stock and having a regular dialogue with the 250 agronomists that we have on farm, and even in the specialist areas, that feedback gives us some advance notice and where we need to be tweaking those plans, bringing product in a bit earlier. Maybe in some cases, and particularly with things like micros, there's the opportunity with the toll production arrangements that we have to be able to go direct to suppliers and say, look, there is some demand coming. We can look at the product flow. We've got some really good systems in place for us to be able to sort of contend with that.
Yeah, it sounds great to me. So to bring all this together, what top tip would each of you give to either agronomists or farmers in terms of thinking about crop protection now and going forwards?
I think the key thing is to keep looking ahead to the future, and there are some big challenges coming for agriculture in the UK, and we don't need to list those out. But really just to keep the faith. There are businesses such as ours who are putting a huge amount of effort and investment into developing solutions and integrated solutions. We've talked about CP today, but it doesn't sit in isolation. We're doing that across the whole piece. So looking at varieties, nutrition, where digital comes into this as well, and how that reduces the impact on the environment, makes the future offers and the existing offers sustainable for them. And I think keep an open mind. There are a lot of products coming along. Some of them better than others, and I think the fact that Agrii is doing all this work should give growers confidence. Great.
And from you, Jess, so what would be your top tip?
I'd agree. I'd say probably don't try and resist a change. Change isn't necessarily a bad thing. And actually, here at Agrii, we are trying to do all the legwork behind understanding how products work and ensuring that they do work, so that the grower can ultimately grow crops in a way that's profitable for them.
Thank you, Chris and Jess, for a great insight as to how Agrii looks at crop protection products, providing these vital tools for sustainable crop production. That's it for this podcast, but do tune in again as we meet the experts throughout the season, exploring the many immediate and longer-term questions for growers and farmers in the UK. If you have any questions that you'd like us to ask the experts, email info@agrii.co.uk. See you next time.